Dividing a life's worth of assets during a contentious divorce presents a distinct mathematical and legal challenge. A persistent misconception is that family courts apply an automated formula to cleanly slice every asset down the middle. In reality, the legal objective is fairness, a subjective target that requires the exercise of judicial discretion to achieve a just outcome. This discretion is strictly governed by Section 25 of the Matrimonial Causes Act, 1973. The statute provides a matrix of 8 specific factors designed to anchor a judge's decision-making to the objective realities of the family. Practitioners often focus on the sharing principle seen in high net worth rulings, but applying that same logic to standard cases, where assets are limited, frequently leads to inaccurate expectations. Mastering how this specific discretionary matrix operates is the only way to predict outcomes and effectively advise clients on financial remedies. This diagram illustrates the starting point for asset division, the yardstick of equality, derived from white versus white. However, the primary statutory directive alters this balance. Section 25(1) mandates the first consideration must always be the welfare of any minor child. If securing stable housing for a child requires giving the primary caregiver a larger share of the capital, the baseline 50-50 equality is set aside. Next, the court evaluates Factor A, a mandatory assessment of all income, earning capacity, property, and other financial resources. Crucially, this assessment extends beyond current holdings to include foreseeable future resources, like expected increases in earning capacity. Measured directly against those resources is Factor B, the financial needs, obligations, and responsibilities of each party. In standard asset cases, needs breaks down into 2 primary components: securing primary housing and maintaining basic daily sustenance. The court also factors in hard obligations, such as the costs a spouse incurs supporting a new family post-divorce. This alters their capacity to pay. These exact same statutory factors yield entirely different ratios depending on the size of the asset pool. In surplus cases, both parties' needs are easily met, leaving a remainder to be shared. In everyday practice, the assessment of needs often exhausts the entire available asset pool, meaning equality is never reached because the survival of the 2 new households takes priority. Factors A and B represent the raw mathematical reality of the family, acting as the primary drivers of any standard financial settlement. This line graph represents the historical context of the marriage. Factor C requires the court to look at the standard of living enjoyed by the family prior to the breakdown. The economic reality is that maintaining 2 separate households is inherently more expensive than maintaining 1 joint household. The court's objective under Factor C is to ensure that the inevitable drop in living standards is shared, rather than disproportionately suffered by only one party. Factor D introduces the age of each party and duration of the marriage into the matrix. Age directly impacts how the court views a party's future earning capacity and their realistic timeline for securing mortgage borrowing. When calculating relationship duration, case law such as CO v. CO provides critical guidance. Periods of committed premarital cohabitation that merge seamlessly into marriage are calculated together as a single continuous duration block. Factor E accounts for the impact of any physical or mental disabilities present in either party. Disability is not assessed in a vacuum. It directly modifies the prior factors by lowering earning capacity while increasing medical and housing needs. In cases of severe disability, this factor can justify shifting the distribution of capital entirely to one side to cover lifelong care requirements. Factors C, D, and E act as contextual lenses, recalibrating what constitutes a need based on the specific history of the unique family. Factor F requires the court to evaluate past and future intangible contributions made to the overall welfare of the family unit. Historically, capital division favored financial breadwinners over domestic homemakers. The landmark ruling in White versus White corrected this, establishing that the court makes no distinction between financial and domestic roles. This ensures a spouse who sacrificed career growth to manage the home is not legally disadvantaged. Factor G addresses the conduct of the parties. This is critical for client management, as individuals frequently seek moral vindication through the financial settlement. However, under the strict Wachtel v. Wachtel threshold, conduct is only considered if it is obvious and gross, and it would be deeply inequitable for the court to disregard it. This is reserved for severe financial dissipation or violent criminal acts. Standard marital grievances, including adultery, do not meet this threshold. Finally, Factor H evaluates the value of any benefit that a party will lose the chance of acquiring due to the divorce. This almost exclusively deals with the loss of a share in the other spouse's pension fund. To satisfy Factor H, pensions must be addressed via specific pension sharing or pension attachment orders, dividing the fund directly. These final factors ensure that non-tangible domestic contributions are measured and valued with the same legal weight as liquid capital. By setting the conduct threshold high, the matrix prevents the family court from devolving into a forum for moral judgment, focusing purely on equitable distribution. Layered over the entire matrix is a final statutory duty, Section 25A, the clean break principle. The court is required to actively consider whether ongoing financial obligations can be severed completely, prioritizing absolute financial finality between the parties. A clean break is typically achieved by dismissing claims for ongoing periodical payments in favor of a final lump sum or property adjustment. This completes the Section 25 matrix. Factors A through H, governed by the first consideration of child welfare, integrate into a cohesive decision-making engine. This incorporates 3 pillars of modern case law: meeting financial needs, compensating for career sacrifices, and sharing the remaining property. Practitioners cannot simply use these statutory factors as a passive checklist. They must be actively deployed to construct a legally sound argument for fair distribution. While the starting point is a partnership of equals, the specific facts fed into the Section 25 matrix are what justify every deviation from a perfect 50-50 split. Methodically applying Section 25 of the Matrimonial Causes Act 1973 provides the only reliable framework to navigate judicial discretion and secure resilient, equitable remedies for clients.